Hello. Welcome to this forum for candidates who will be on your primary election ballot. I'm Liz Kernitz-Thurlow from the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County. The purpose of the League of Women Voters is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation in government. We've worked with the Community Council of Tacoma and TV Tacoma to present these forums. Primary elections in municipal races are only held when more than 2 candidates have filed. This year, we have 2 Port of Tacoma races, 1 school board race, and 1 Tacoma City Council race, each with 3 candidates. So these are the only 4 which will be presented now. The primary election is August 6th. You must deposit your ballot in a drop box or get it postmarked by that date. They recommend mailing early if you are mailing in your ballot. The 2 candidates in each primary race who get more votes will continue on to the general election. In October, we will present forums with the 2 candidates still in each of these races and for all of the other races which will be on your ballot. Questions have been prepared by the Community Council of Tacoma and the League of Women Voters, with additional suggestions by other community members. Questions will be asked by members of the Community Council of Tacoma. Questions from the audience will be asked by a member of the League of Women Voters. Citizen participation in government is a cornerstone of democracy. Voting is another. If you're watching this, you're an involved citizen and we thank you. Please follow it up by voting. Thank you for watching. I urge you to do all that you can to select the candidates whom you feel best represent what you want for yourself and your community. Welcome to this forum for primary candidates for Tacoma School Board Position 2. This is for a 2-year term to complete an unexpired term. All school board members represent all the residents of Tacoma. The 2 candidates getting more votes will advance to the general election. The candidates are, in ballot order, Kristopher A. Kerns, John Marsden, and Enrique Leon. John Marsden is not with us today, so Kristopher Kerns and Enrique Leon will be the only 2 participating. The timekeeper is Susan Eidenschink, and she will let the candidates know when they have 30 seconds left, 15, and when it's time to stop. Because each candidate is given the same amount of time to answer all the same questions. The questions will be asked by members of the Community and Neighborhood Councils of Tacoma and have been prepared by them and by the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County. Questions from the audience and the public will be asked by Marty Webb, a member of the League of Women Voters. Each candidate now gets up to 1 minute for an opening statement, and we begin with Kristopher Kerns.
Perfect. First of all, I just want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy Friday and coming down and listening to me and Dr. Leon. Like you had said, my name is Kristopher Kerns, and I'm running for the Tacoma School Board Director Position 2. I was born and raised in Tacoma. I went through the Tacoma public school system, and they've come a long way since I was in the program about 15 years ago, but in my opinion, they haven't gone far enough. I think that, and I know that because I currently have 2 children that are in the Tacoma public schools at Point Defiance Elementary. And regardless of where you live in Tacoma, I think there's multiple systemic issues throughout all our schools that are facing all our kids. And that's why I'm running, is to try to make a difference. I look at this position in our community as a social responsibility and not a position of prestige. And I look forward to working with everybody all across Tacoma to make our schools the best.
Thank you. Enrique Leon, please.
Thank you. My goals are really to improve health, safety, and academic success of all the students in Tacoma. My background is as an immigrant, a Peruvian American, coming to the United States and going to a public school in Maryland. I've been a resident of Tacoma for 16 years. My kids have been throughout the school system here in public school. And I know there have been improvements. I've seen them from first hand as I volunteered in the schools throughout my kids' elementary school, teaching art classes, the volunteer physician for Lincoln and Stadium for 14 years. But I know that there's improvement that can be made, and that will come in the way of confirming that we get improved health. Healthier kids learn better, less stressed, and healthier kids physically and mentally learn better. So I can go into some of those ideas throughout the rest of the discussion. Thank you.
We move on to questions. The questions will be asked by Liz Burris and Ginny Eberhardt. Liz Burris will ask the first question, and if I don't specify otherwise, you will have 60 seconds to answer each question. The order of answering will rotate with each, so therefore Enrique Leon will answer the first question first.
Do you see a way to ease the workload, provide additional social services, and make it more possible for our students to have the best teachers?
Yes, so easing the workload, I presume you mean on teachers?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So a lot of this revolves around getting the high-quality teachers that we have currently and attracting more. So teachers that are really performing at the top of their game will be more efficient in the way they teach. Having the proper curriculum is very important because that really saves teachers a lot of time, and that's something I was very invested in. Picking and approving. We weren't on the ground in the classroom picking the exact curriculum, but we were able to evaluate them from the recommendations from the teachers. So early childhood education, the reading curriculum, K through 12, that's proven to have a big effect on how kids succeed in the future, and the math curriculum, two important curriculums that we've adopted this year, along with the social emotional learning curriculum, which is really key to creating a sense of good communication, safety in schools. Like I said, if kids are not safe emotionally, they cannot learn very well. So.
Thank you. Kristopher Kerns.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Do you see a way to ease the workload, provide additional social services, and make it more possible for our students to have the best teachers?
I mean, that's what we want, right? We want the best teachers for our students. We want these resources that are going to help them be successful in life and through their academic careers. The problem is we're burdened with some very severe financial issues that are going to make that possibility a challenge, right? It doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's going to be very challenging moving forward to do that. But 100%, we need to reduce the workload on teachers. They're burdened with too much teaching to a test, right? We're taking the innovation out of the classrooms. We need to support more paraeducators as helping our teachers teach the kids. As far as curriculum, I think making sure that we agree with the teachers what's the best curriculum for their student population will go a long way in preventing excess work outside of the classroom, because I know that my friends that are teachers, they do so much work outside of the classroom, out on their own time, and that's just not right. So we need to definitely lift that burden, but it's going to take a lot of work from all of us.
Thank you. Ginny Eberhardt will ask the next question. It goes to Kristopher Kerns first.
Do you think that our schools have adequate security? If not, what ideas do you have for improving security in all of our schools?
Yes, thank you. Do I think they have adequate security? It depends on how you would define security. You know, do our kids feel safe? And that is usually not the case. So last night's board meeting, I know that the district is working to put in physical barriers for security, cameras, key cards. That's a temporary fix. I think more focusing on the social emotional learning behavior paradigm of the whole child initiative is going to prove to be more effective at creating a safe learning environment and respect between teachers and students and peers to peers. So as far as safety, depends on where you're in Tacoma, because I know that some schools are maybe students feel less safe in. And there's social issues that we have to face in our schools, the LGBTQ population. We want to make sure that they feel safe in our schools. So we just need to, there's a lot of work still to be done.
Thank you. Enrique Leon.
So I do think we have places to improve our safety, and as Kristopher mentioned, a new bond package that we're evaluating around safer vestibules, they call them, so basically controlled areas where people can come into the schools. And yes, that is a physical barrier. It's important. And the Whole Child Initiative, which was mentioned, and the social emotional learning piece that we have the full curriculum on will really improve how kids interact with each other, they treat each other, treat teachers, less time away with discipline issues, suspension. We're trying to decrease those numbers, especially communities of color, which I'm very passionate about improving upon as a Latino male. I know that brown-colored people get discriminated against a lot more with regard to suspension and those type of issues. The other important part of safety is improving our numbers of counselors and nurses, and we had to very, very sadly let counselors go and some nurses go, but I fought hard to keep as many of those in our staff this time around in these budget cuts.
Thank you. The next question will be asked by Liz Burris, and Enrique Leon will answer it first.
How will you work to improve conditions for historically underserved schools? And what is your position on minority, immigrant, trans, and LGBT rights and services for students and curricula?
So we need to protect all students. If we forget or don't treat everyone with equity, then we're really doing a disservice, not just to them, but the other students see that is something that's reinforced in a negative way. So really improving upon that with our FLASH curriculum, which is the newer health curriculum that we purchased from Seattle a couple years ago. It hasn't been fully implemented in the district yet, but is something that is teaching kids how to communicate in the language that is appropriate to learn and be sensitive to the needs of people of color, LGBTQ students and teachers, community members. And if we can completely roll that out, and we're working on that, I think that will improve a lot of how we treat those kids. Underserved, so communities that have been maybe forgotten about, we really are struggling and fighting hard to make sure equity is in the lens as we do our bond rollout of schools. So we're making sure that places like Geodrone and Mason are getting new tracks. So we're tackling all parts of the city.
Thank you. Kristopher Kerns.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
How will you work to improve conditions for historically underserved schools? And what is your position on minority, immigrant, trans, and LGBT rights and services for students and curricula?
Thank you. So as far as typical disenfranchised learners, we need to make sure that they have additional resources because they're already at an unequal advantage compared to most schools. And the biggest thing that we can do there is to audit the different schools and the barriers that their students are facing. To improve equity, we need to know how much inequity there is, and I haven't seen that in my investigation so far into our schools. So in addition, I think to overcome those barriers too, we need to make sure that the teachers have adequate training how to deal with these different minority student populations. And as far as supporting the different minorities, LGBTQ, I 100% support them, but I think we need to really investigate how to make them feel safe and equitable in our district.
Thank you. Ms. Eberhardt, the next question goes to Kristopher Kerns first.
Just to let you know, this is a three-part question. What are the steps that you would take to ensure that school districts enforce zero tolerance on bullying? And then to follow that, if you have repeat offenders in students, what would your policy be? And the same for schools. If schools continue to have repeat offenses, what do you want to see from them?
And you have a minute.
Okay, thank you. In my opinion, and from talking to people in our community, the zero tolerance policy typically is disproportionate to our minority students. They face more discipline than children of non-color or white. So the zero tolerance policy isn't something that I'm focused on and pursuing. What I think we need to do is incorporate alternative and innovative methods to discipline and promoting mindfulness and the social-emotional learning training, because sending a kid to the office, that doesn't do anything. We need to educate them. We need to have them better understand their behavior, what are their triggers, and then not only that is work with counselors to identify issues that maybe are happening outside of school that are influencing their behavior. I think those are going to be much more fruitful in the long term. So there was the third part of the question.
The other one, what do you want to see the schools do if they continue to have the same problems?
I think just incorporate more of these more innovative strategies to discipline.
Thank you.
Enrique Leon.
Mm-hmm. So just bullying is one of the key issues that keeps kids mentally unsafe and unable to learn. And I was dealing with a high school kid yesterday who was suicidal because of bullying issues, and was with me in my office. So I see this every day from both of my private work and my public volunteer work. The social emotional learning piece that we've mentioned a lot now is working in the pilot schools that we've had it in for the past couple of years. So I've done visits to Baker and seen it in action, talked to their administrators who are improving the rate, decreasing the rate of these events happening. In the beginning, we get more of them reported because we're looking for them more often, which is a good thing. The repeat offender issue, I think that yes, there need to be escalated levels. We don't want to suspend kids or kick them out of school, but there has to be escalation, and principals at some point may need to bring someone else involved, like a counselor who has that training, and improving our counselor techniques.
Thank you. Yeah. The following question is from the parent of a Tacoma middle school student. It will be asked by Marty Webb of the League of Women Voters.
How would you seek to improve the experience district-wide for students with disabilities, both socially and academically?
Mr. Leon.
Yeah. So socially, part of this training that we've got going on with regard to restorative justice circles, if something that is done inappropriately to anybody with disabilities, is really important to educate kids on how to treat each other. We're a magnet for outside districts sending their students here who have different types of physical and psychological disabilities, and we don't always get the funding from those districts that appropriately follow those kids. We are doing what's right for our community and helping other communities by, I think, advocating at the state level also to get more funds from Olympia, more medical type funds also, diagnostic funds and treatment funds for physical therapy. Occupational therapy is also an important part of this. We can expand our treatment of and care of these kids so they can better learn, incorporating them into the regular school day with the regular classrooms as much as possible, and not excluding them into individual rooms where they can't learn, and incorporate their kind of teamwork abilities as well.
Can you repeat the question, please?
How would you seek to improve the experience district-wide for students with disabilities, both socially and academically?
Thank you. I think it's important that we recognize that there are systemic issues when it comes to disability learners in our district, both socially and educationally. I think, as Dr. Leon mentioned, that the most important thing as a director of the school board is we advocate and work with legislators in Washington. It comes down to funding. We need more resources in our schools. We need more resources for our teachers, right? The only way we're going to get those resources is if we tell Olympia that we can't keep funding disabled learners, whether educational or social, that their education will cost 2 to 3 times more a traditional student, right? We need to, but they only get the same amount from the state. So we really need to do a better job at advocating, rallying the people, and really sending a message to people down in Olympia that our district has been not equally treated with the recent McCleary decision, and among other things. That's the only real way we're going to do is we need more resources, and we need them now.
Thank you. The next two questions have come from our audience in the studio. Kristopher Kerns will answer the first one first.
How will you ensure equity in staffing and funding for schools in high poverty areas?
Thank you. So I believe in an unequal funding model. Schools that have more reports of adverse child events tend to require more resources for student success and teacher success. So it's identifying how those resources are going to be adequately assessed and implemented in those schools. So funding and controlling the funding is a major way that will offset that barrier. What was the first part of your question?
You want me to repeat the whole question? How will you ensure equity in staffing and funding for schools in high poverty areas?
The equity in staffing is we just need to make sure that the hiring policy for Tacoma Public Schools is one of the most flawed. We wait far too long to offer jobs to highly qualified academics and teachers in our community. It's crazy that most teachers come from University of Washington Tacoma, PLU, University of Puget Sound. These are all Pierce County schools. Right? But when it comes to burden, we don't get the chance to hire them because they are usually burdened with high debt and have to take a job quickly.
Thank you. Mr. Leon.
So staffing and funding is being completely addressed at the kind of planning phase at this point with regard to some of our bonds issue that we talked about yesterday as we expand the physical space. That's one, so that we need to have equal physical plants in addition to the teachers. And these schools that are not doing as well, as you mentioned, the adverse childhood events, so those are things like substance abuse in the home, child abuse, those type of things for anyone in the listening audience who's not familiar with that term. Those schools do need more help with regard to more counselors, higher teacher ratio, maybe another assistant principal, whatever that school though should be the one to decide also, as opposed to coming down from the administrative office. I'd like to give more control to the actual schools and those principals and those teachers, and those counselors that know those kids best, what it is, what resources we can give them to help those children. And that applies for the kids that are Latino kids, African American kids, or white kids that are coming from poverty, anyone who has those adverse childhood events.
Thank you. Mr. Leon will answer the next question from the public first.
Do you see after-school programs as something that are needed in our community, and how should we incorporate staff and fund them?
Absolutely. Extended day after-school programs are a key part of keeping our kids safe, ingrained, continue to be good learners. So our partnerships with Metro Parks, YMCA have been very strong. I've been a coach on many teams, about 18 seasons that I've coached my kids through, and part of that's been through both of those organizations. And when we switched over to having that right after school at the school field, it increased our participation rate immensely. But not just that. It's the arts, it's the drama, it's the choir, it's all the activities. It's not just organized sports. If we can keep the kids in a positive atmosphere longer, then we get better outcomes academically, less truancy and other problems that may occur with those kids. So funding was part of that question, I believe, too. Yeah, so I think we need to really apply those funds and think about that as not just asking our partners to give. I think we need to put our staff and our Tacoma school dollars to work in those areas, too. But I think our partners are ready and willing to help us with funds.
Thank you.
And they have.
Mr. Kerns.
I agree. After-school programs have played a critical role in my life and a lot of kids' lives in our district because of the continuation of engagement, right? They're building bonds with their mentors, their peers. But the problem is we need to reduce barriers to these programs. The problem is our curriculum has become so inflated to where teachers don't have so much freedom in their curricula that for kids that want to learn coding or engineering, they have to attend after school things, but those obviously often have high costs associated with them. So creates an unnecessary barrier. So as far as funding goes, I think we should also incentivize our teachers to volunteer. I think that they also should be financially supplemented, but I think that they go a long way working with our kids. So we just need to, again, work with our partners to try to better out how we can offset these very high costs that are often associated with these very successful after-school programs.
Thank you. This will be the last question. Kristopher Kerns will answer it first. The question will be asked by Liz Burris.
What do you think about year-round school? Should we be considering it?
That is the first time I've heard that from anybody, but it's actually something I've thought a lot about. I think that year-round school, if we talk about even the last question, continued engagement tends to have the highest success. As an academic, I go to school year-round, right? Many professional health programs are year-round, and the reason why is because it provides continued engagement for the kids. One of the biggest things in our district right now, with especially it's going to get worse with increased lunch costs, is food insecurity. During the summer, these students, we have to rely on, our community partners to fill these gaps because, we're not overseeing these kids for the summer. So a year-round program, I think, would go a lot longer way at reducing the burden to the workload of teachers, as well as eliminating any other barriers such as food inequities and those types of issues.
Thank you. Enrique Leon.
Year-round schools are a great idea. So yes. Is our community ready for it? I think I'd like to explore that. So I'm working on extending having high school students come to school later. That's something I'm passionate about. So I think that's an important piece of it, but that's not extending the whole school year. So the current approach of summer off is a remnant of when we had a lot of agriculture in the world and everyone had to go harvest, and there was a reason for that. That's not the world we live in today. Other societies that have done this, some in Asia and Japan, have experienced booms in their academic performance because there's not that slump. Everybody has heard of the slump that happens over the summer when kids aren't pushing themselves academically. So, and the other thing that is important, those societies do better with wellness. So teachers, parents, so you give them vacations. You spread that summer vacation, you just spread it out throughout the year. So there's there's more often shorter breaks throughout the year, and kids learn better that way. And many of the teachers are also less stressed that way because they get those breaks when they most need them, not all in one big chunk. Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you to our questioners. Now you each have up to 1 minute for a closing statement. Reversing our order, Enrique Leon will make the first closing statement.
Sure. Well, it's been an honor and a privilege to serve the community for this past year and a half on the school board, and I believe I have a lot of unfinished work with regard to things like the Bell schedule and school-based health centers, improving the health so that the kids can learn better in our society. My focus is prevention and healthier societies. That's what I do in my day job, and I'd like to have that bigger impact on our society by helping the kids at the youngest levels possible succeed. So I'd love to have your support for another 2 years and beyond, if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Kristopher Kerns.
I just again want to thank you guys for your time and this opportunity to talk about kind of what I think and what I hope to accomplish as a director. Our progress is going to be severely hampered by our financial situation, and we have to be conscious of that. And that's the biggest issue, that we need to right that wrong. One of the other things is just the special needs education in our district is at systemic levels. IEPs are not being met. They're going to be even more challenged with reduction in staffing throughout our district. And these are things that I am both passionate about and will work tirelessly to try to find creative and innovative solutions. I'm not a yes man or a yes person, but I will do anything and everything. I've already built strong coalitions in our community, and I really look forward to taking on this task, whether I'm elected or not, because I feel so strongly about it and learned so much in this just just awesome opportunity. So I really think that I can make a huge difference in our community. I'm just super passionate about education. It's done so much for me in my life, and I look forward to sharing that with everybody in our city.
Thank you. Thank you to the candidates for Tacoma School Board Position 2. Enrique Leon and Kristopher Kerns are with us. John Marsden is also a candidate. Thank you for watching or listening and helping make your vote an educated one. Now you need to use it. The primary election is Tuesday, August 6th. If you're mailing your ballot, the post office recommends that you send it in before the 6th. If using a drop box, you have until 8 p.m. on the 6th. Thank you for being here or watching and making your vote count.